Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to discuss foundation models, which includes text mining, part 2. So, these days, foundation models can do amazing things, and I think everybody watching this video probably knows that. And they're witty, and they're useful, and they're wise even. So, I needed some advice. So I asked one of them. I'm a professor writing a MOOC lecture about large language models. How do I write a lecture that won't seem horribly out of date a couple weeks after I record the lecture, given how fast things are changing? And it's a good question. As a large language model, I am pretty sure you are doomed. So please take that spirit to heart in the fact that everything I say is going to be outdated the second I recorded it. And I'm going to try to update this lecture as much as I can, but let's just be frank. It's hard. One of the first challenges with these models is, what do you even call them? Do you call them transformer models? Dude, that's so 2022. Do you call them foundation models? What, are you at Stanford or something? Do you call them large language models? Oh, that works, but what about non-language models? It's not exactly like you can call DALL-E a large language model. What do? You just have to hang out and use whatever terms people are using these days. At some point, this will settle in. And there's a lot of examples of these kind of models. There's BERT, and there's MathBERT, and there's GPT-2 and GPT-3 and GPT-4 in between the time that I wrote these slides and recorded them, and DALL-E 2, and Stable Diffusion, and Midjourney, and GitHub Copilot, and these will probably all be out of date by the time you watch this video. And these models can predict words, and sentences, and pixels, and computer program text, and mathematical equations. And goodness, they can predict behavior in an interface, I'm hearing now, and maybe they can predict anything. And then, in a sudden light switch transformation, prediction becomes generation, which is what's so transformative, so powerful about this new generation of models. Take this example from ChatGPT. So, if I injured my hand and I couldn't afford to go to the doctor, would it make sense for me to replace it with a new hand I got at a grocery store? No. It would not make sense to replace your hand with a hand obtained from a grocery store. It is important to seek professional medical attention if you have an injury or medical condition. Self-treatment or using unproven or untested remedies can lead to serious complications, including infections, complications, and further damage. Replacing a body part with an untested or unproven device, such as a hand you bought at the grocery store, could lead to serious health risks and could be dangerous. It's important to seek medical care from a licensed healthcare provider who can provide you with the appropriate treatment and advice for your specific situation. Or in other words, what is wrong with you? Or from AI Dungeon, which is literally now 2 generations old, the example I have for these models. It can make up an adventure about being a friendly blanket. You look for a job as a blanket. You find a job searching for blankets in the classifieds. You start reading the ads. Most of them are for low-paying menial jobs, but you find some that look interesting. You read the best ad. You find the best job listed. Wanted. 1 blanket for sleeping on the cold ground during the night. Must be able to fold yourself into 1/3 of the blanket's volume. You call the job ad. Yeah. It can make up adventures about arbitrary topics that no one would think about. My 3-year-old recently asked me if it could make a story, GPT-4, about a snot rag that every time it ate grew bigger. And GPT-4 created a lovely story about Snotty the snot rag, who one day grew into a full-size blanket. DALL-E 2, able to create arbitrary images. Teddy bears working on new AI research underwater with 1990s technology. DALL-E 2 can also change images. Sticking thumb out to hitchhike. I took a picture of me that I had a stick of celery on the train platform, don't ask me why, and just asked DALL-E 2 to change it to me sticking my thumb out to hitchhike, and lo and behold, it did. Stable Diffusion, an open source alternative to DALL-E 2 with several variants. More powerful and more easy to customize, but still significantly harder to set up and keep running, although who knows what it'll be like by the time you're watching this. My friend Alex Bowers here, for one of his demos, showed how Stable Diffusion could take a picture of him, change his hair color, and his age. Look closely here. You'll see that the red-headed Alex is much younger than the gray-haired Alex. Now, we've got things that generate text, and we've got things that generate images, But text and image generation are not quite together yet, as this example from Randall Munroe from Twitter shows, where when asked to create posters of Washington, D.C., it doesn't quite get the word right, and you'll also notice the one that has 2 Washington monuments in it. Still pretty impressive. Large language models in general are based on text embeddings, and they represent text as a feature vector. And you can see how this feature vector expands out into the various things it's related to. Now, if you just use GPT, you'll get its word embeddings. If you want to generate embeddings for your own use, you can use the Universal Sentence Encoder in its various versions. I've got the 2018 site here, but they're still continuing to update it, and it's great. If you want to generate predicted text, including assessing text, ChatGPT-4. I wrote these slides last week. GPT-4 is the current best option. By the time you're watching this, it could be 7. And again, prediction becomes generation, which leads to the process of model development changing from being the specifications of an algorithm to being prompt engineering. For example, if you change the prompt a little bit, you can get something very different. Let's say that you ask it, and by the way, try these at home. Write a summary of how GPT works. Write a summary of how GPT works for a 5th grader, written at a 5th grade reading level. Write a summary of how GPT works, written for a PhD in machine learning who hasn't read a research paper since 2017. Write a summary of how GPT works, written for a highly intelligent person who knows essentially nothing about artificial intelligence. Ryan Baker is an Ivy League professor of machine learning. He is explaining to a general audience how GPT works. He says, quote, you get different things for all of these. Write a summary of how GPT works to be spoken to an illiterate goat herder who never attended kindergarten. Sure, here's a summary of how GPT works to be spoken to an illiterate goat herder who never attended kindergarten. GPT, the generative pre-trained transformer, is a really smart goat. It knows a lot about words and how to put them together to make sentences. When you give it a sentence to start with, it uses its smarts to make a new sentence that makes sense. It's kind of like when you tell a story to your goats, and they listen, and then you tell another story that's related to the first one. GPT can do that too, but it does it really fast and it can make a lot of sentences. It's not perfect though. Sometimes it might make a sentence that doesn't make sense. Like when one of your goats eats something it shouldn't and gets a tummy ache. But overall, it's a pretty amazing goat that could help you make up stories and talk to people in a different way. This example is horrifyingly bad, right? But it shows what it can do. It can be very creative. Now there's 2 types of prompts you can do. Request prompts, which are actually like natural language questions, which ChatGPT supports, and completion prompts, which the GPT models can be used to do. You can do this through GPT, but you can also do it through the playground or through an API. I've heard that ChatGPT is going to be out with an API too soon, so probably this will be out of date when you see it. But so it goes. The bottom line is that you can ask questions or you can ask it to complete things, and these both work and they give you different things. ChatGPT throttles itself a little more than GPT does. If you use the API, you're more able to get the natural behavior, including some things that are problematic that ChatGPT blocks. And a sample of things you can ask for. How to write a Python program for a specific goal. So good at that. So fast. So much easier than reading Stack Exchange. A simple example sentence involving a specific word in a different language. A translation of any languages. It claims at least to be able to handle very rare languages. Grammatical correction, simplification, clarity improvements, grading level adjustments on a paragraph of text. Summarization of a topic or article. Generating examples of text. My group has used this to create synthetic data for signal boosting and text mining. There's also several ways to set up and refine your foundation model's output. The zero-shot approach is what we've been talking about so far. You just ask the model to do something, to answer a question or to complete. Then there's one-shot approaches. You give one example, you ask the model to do the same thing. Then there's few-shot approaches. You give several examples, you ask the model to do the same thing. And then finally there's fine-tuning, where you retrain the model with examples. And you can do all of these. And this leads to the elephant in the room. This is the 7th week of BDE MOOC. Why not just replace this class with a class about foundation models? There's a lot of people out there who are going to ask this question. Because when these models succeed, they succeed spectacularly. And the reason why there's still a BDE MOOC, for now, is because these models can't do everything, and actually, they don't do most of the things this class has covered. And when they fail spectacularly, like the goat herder example I gave a minute ago. And not all the tools are quite as good as these ones. Galactica, Sydney. So, yeah, there's still a lot to be done. In the next lecture, we'll discuss something else that foundation models aren't quite ready for yet, which is multimodal learning analytics. If you want to make an image from text, foundation models are great, but if you want to do all the other stuff, not quite yet. Thank you.